Good morning, dear children. Hope you all are fine. Today we are going to start our politics chapter number 1. What is democracy and why democracy? First of all, we can start with what is democracy. Let's start with some common definitions of democracy. And democracy is derived from a Greek word that is known as the rule of the people. And as we all know the definition of democracy that put forward by Abraham Lincoln, that is, democracy is a rule of the people, by the people, and for the people. So, now we can look what is the distinction between democracy and non-democracy. For example, Myanmar is a country which is very near to us and it is following a non-democratic way. Myanmar is following a military rule. Myanmar is a country with no democratic form. Another example is Chile, and it is also following a non democratic way. That is commonly known as dictatorship. Some of the country are ruled by one person, and the particular person will make all of the law, and he is the full authority of that particular country. That is known as monarchies. For example, Saudi Arabia is such a country. That is, that Saudi Arabia was ruled by a king and it is followed by his hereditarily. The son will follow his rule and there is no democracy in that country. Do you know that Nepal was a monarchy for about 239 years and it is ruled by a king, and here is King Gyanendra. In 2005, he charged his place, and in 2008, the people of Nepal banned the monarchy rule and they elected an elected parliament. Now let's look into two types of democracy, that is, representative democracy and direct democracy. In representative democracy, the people will elect a representative for their own, and that elected representatives will form a government. But in direct democracy, the people will perform themselves and there were no representatives for them. For example, India is following the representative democracy and the Switzerland is following the direct democracy. That is, the people will elect their own and themselves as the government. In Switzerland, they will be announcing a proposal to the peoples and they will choose whether it is right or wrong. The laws and the policies are also followed by this type. So, here we can say that democracy is not full-fledged in a manner. And now we can look at 4 features of democracy, that is, rulers, election, people, and government. In democracy, the rulers are the elected representatives and they will take the major decisions. In a democracy, election should be in free and fair electoral competition. There should not be any complications within that election. Next is the people. The people is the one person who elect their leaders and their representatives. And in a democracy, people are the major part of a democracy that shows one person, one vote, and one value. The last is the government, and the government should be in the proposal of people. A government should be stand for rule of law and respect for rights. And let's look at the pros and cons of the democracy. First of all, we can look The arguments against democracy. What are the arguments against democracy? The arguments are instability due to change in leadership. That means every persons or every leaders or every representatives are changing in a periodical of time or in a process of time. The leaders are changing, so there is an instability keeping there in a democracy. Due to the changing of these leaders, the people cannot understand who is right and who is wrong. And next is delay in decisions. In a democracy, there are so many arguments and there are so many problems in a democracy. The government themselves can't take a decisions at a particular time. That is known as delay in decisions. And the next is lack of morality. We can see so many police officers are very rude to the public. So the morality is not going on well. We can say that in democracy, a lack of morality is there. And the next is scope of corruption. In a democracy, there are so many chances of corruption. As we all know that in newspapers, televisions, social medias are full arguments against this democracy and about this corruption. So in a democracy, there is a chance of corruption. And the last is scope of bad decisions. That is, in a democracy, there is a chance of bad decisions which is taken by the government. So children, here comes to the end of this session and we can continue it in our next session. Hope you all understand about what is democracy and the pros and cons and the difference between democracy and non-democracy. Thank you children.